Imagine living in a village of roughly 2,800 people, and, it's the year 2026.
Right.
We're living in this era of just ubiquitous smartphones, satellite internet, global travel, and AI that can translate these obscure dialects in real time.
Yeah, we're completely connected.
Exactly. Yet despite all of that interconnected technology, not a single person in your community has ever heard the name of Jesus. Not one. No church, no recorded history of a missionary ever even visiting.
It's just staggering to think about.
It really is. Welcome to the Missions Connect Deep Dive podcast. Today, we're going to look at how something like that is even possible today.
Yeah, because it really shatters our assumptions about how thoroughly connected the modern globe actually is.
Yeah.
We tend to think that information reaches everywhere equally, but the reality on the ground is, it's far more complex.
Oh, absolutely. And we are diving into that complexity today to really prepare your mind and heart for the upcoming week, because we are jumping straight into the weekly preview for Missions Connect.
Right, which is a ministry of assistingtoobey.com.
Yes, exactly. And for those of you following along, this is week 22. So that runs from May 25th through May 31st, 2026. And this week, you are basically being invited on this massive global prayer journey to some of the most urgent, complex front lines on Earth.
We're really focusing on three distinct dimensions of the Great Commission here. So the unreached, the persecuted, and those living in conflict zones.
Yeah. And to give us a solid foundation for this deep dive, the weekly preview anchors this entire week in a very specific perspective, and that's from 2 Peter 3, verse 9.
Yeah, that verse is so crucial. It says that the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness, but is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish.
I love that.
Right. What is so vital here is the mechanism of how we view global history. When we look at a map full of conflict or regions that are totally closed off, it's so easy to view that as a broken machine, or to see God's timeline as strangely delayed.
Oh, I do that all the time. I mean, you watch the news and you just think, how long is this going to go on?
Exactly. But the weekly preview is challenging us to change that lens entirely. It's equipping you to view these locations not through a lens of despair or anxiety, but through a lens of urgent, actionable mercy.
Actionable mercy. That's a great phrase.
Yeah. Every day the timeline extends isn't a delay. It's a profound act of patience, ensuring that a community completely cut off from the gospel finally gets a chance to hear it.
Which brings us perfectly to the first focus for the week, because I mentioned that village of 2,800 people at the start.
Yeah.
And that is not a hypothetical.
No, it's very real.
We are looking at the Awu people of Guizhou province in southern China.
Right.
And I have to push back on this a little bit, because when I was reading through the materials for today, the statistics honestly just baffled me. 0 known believers.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that practically possible? With these massive global mission organizations mapping out the world, did an entire distinct people group just, slip through the cracks of modern strategy? Are we just not using our satellites properly?
Well, it really comes down to the mechanism of demographic invisibility.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, it's not that they are physically hidden in some impenetrable jungle. The barrier is actually bureaucratic.
Oh, wow. Bureaucrat.
Yeah. The Chinese government officially classifies the Ayu as part of the broader Jilao nationality. So when large global mission organizations are pulling demographic data to, plan their strategies and allocate resources.
Yeah, you just don't show up.
Exactly. They don't show up as a distinct target.
Ah, I see. So it's almost like a rounding error in a massive data algorithm.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with a national population of 1.4 billion people, a unique ethnic group of 2,800 people just gets rounded down to 0. They become completely invisible to the algorithm of global missions, even though they speak their own distinct language and have their own highly distinct ethnic identity.
That is exactly the mechanism at play. They get absorbed into these larger statistical blocks. And because they've slipped through that net, they have remained completely steeped in generations of ancestor veneration and spirit worship.
Yeah.
And that is why the Joshua Project classifies them at the deepest possible level of unreached status, which is Frontier Unreached, Level 1A.
Level 1A. So what does that classification actually mean on the ground, though? Because, we throw around terms like unreached a lot. But what does that look like on a Tuesday afternoon in Guizhou province?
Practically speaking, Level 1A means that Christians make up less than 0.1% of their population.
Right.
But, as the weekly preview clarifies, for the AU, that number is effectively absolute 0. I mean, Means there is no local church to invite a neighbor to, there's no Bible translated into their specific dialect.
Nothing.
Nothing. There's no indigenous community of faith to break that cultural loop of ancestor veneration, which tightly binds their social structure together. Leaving that belief system isn't just a change of mind for them.
That's a social thing.
Exactly. It means risking total social exile from your family.
Wow. So how do you even begin to penetrate a barrier like that? Especially considering China currently ranks 17th on the Open Doors World Watch List.
Yeah, that's a huge factor.
I mean, direct access for Western missionaries is incredibly restricted, if not entirely impossible. Are we just hoping someone accidentally wanders into their territory?
Not at all. And this is where the strategic hope of the weekly preview really shines. The barrier isn't a lack of resources overall. The barrier is targeted deployment.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, the necessary gospel resources already exist in Mandarin, which many ACU actually understand due to broader cultural integration. So the strategic key here is the indigenous Chinese church.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Chinese Christians who already have legitimate access to Guizhou province could be the ones to reach them without triggering the alarms that a Western worker definitely would.
That makes so much sense. It's about mobilizing the believers who are already geographically and culturally adjacent to them.
Exactly.
And that ties beautifully to the Daily Prayer Guide's key verse for this segment, which is Psalm 2, verse 8, asking God to make the nations an inheritance. So we are being asked to pray specifically for a pioneer worker to be called to Vision, Kiangsi, and Dafan counties.
Right.
And also to pray for young Ao migrants who travel to larger Chinese cities for work, because maybe they might encounter the gospel there and bring it back to their villages.
Yeah, that's a huge prayer point. So in China, the barrier is geographic and bureaucratic invisibility. But what happens when the barrier isn't invisibility, but hypervisibility?
Ooh, that's a shift.
Right. What happens in a place where the government knows exactly who you are, the church is actually growing, but sharing your faith is actively criminalized?
That is a phenomenal question. And it takes us directly from China to our second focus in this deep dive, which is the persecuted church in India.
Yes.
And again, following the weekly preview, we are looking at the numbers and the legal landscape impartially to just understand the mechanisms of what is actually happening.
Right, just looking at the facts.
Exactly. So India has an estimated 30 to 70 million Christians. Now, out of context, that sounds like a massive, thriving number.
It does sound big, but you really have to place it within the context of a country with 1.4 billion people.
Right.
Christians make up less than 5% of the total population there, and the landscape for that minority has shifted drastically under the current government. The weekly preview highlights a 20% surge in the membership of the RSS organization.
Yeah, let's clarify what the RSS actually is for those who might not know, because
Yeah.
it is crucial context. It's a massive right-wing paramilitary volunteer organization, correct?
Yes, it is. And the core mechanism of their ideology is the belief that to be truly Indian is to be Hindu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they equate national identity inextricably with religious identity. So if you are an Indian who converts to Christianity or Islam under this ideological framework, you're not just changing your theology, you are essentially viewed as betraying your country and your culture.
Which completely explains how that ideology translates into the legal system.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing these anti-conversion laws currently operating in 12 different Indian states.
Yes, 12 states.
But wait, how do you actually enforce a law against changing your mind? Like, how does an anti-conversion law function day to day?
They function through deliberately vague wording.
Ah.
Yeah, the laws are ostensibly designed to prevent forced conversions or conversions by allurement. But because those terms are so broadly defined, the laws create massive legal loopholes.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. They can be weaponized by local grievances. So if a pastor hosts a simple, peaceful prayer meeting in their own living room, a neighbor who just doesn't like them can report it as an illegal attempt at forced conversion. And the burden of proof often falls on the accused.
And the human cost of that vague legal wording is just devastating. The weekly preview brings up Jose and Shija Papachan. In January 2025, they became the first Christians ever convicted under the anti-conversion law in Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah, that was a landmark case.
And they received a 5-year prison sentence on charges they completely deny.
Oh.
They are currently out on bail, but their lives have been entirely upended. And it's a systemic issue. I mean, in Chhattisgarh, house churches are being banned outright without any formal written notice.
Yeah, shut down.
Yep. And there are still thousands of believers in Manipur displaced from the ethno-religious clashes of 2023.
It is a suffocating level of pressure. But what is truly staggering here is the resilience of the believers operating inside that pressure cooker.
Oh, absolutely.
There is a featured video resource in the app this week from Voice of the Martyrs USA, and it features a gospel worker named Brother Vijay. The reality he describes is almost paradoxical.
Yes, the spy paradox. I was completely floored by this when I read.
It's amazing.
So Brother Vijay explains that the local authorities are actively sending spies into Christian gatherings to monitor them, right? And gather evidence for these anti-conversion charges.
Right.
But because the gospel is being preached in those meetings, one of the spies actually heard the message, was completely transformed, and ended up becoming an ambassador for Christ. I mean, the government paid a man to go collect evidence, and instead, he collected salvation.
It's just a brilliant illustration of how the very mechanisms designed to suppress the church often inadvertently expand it.
Yeah.
But Brother Vijay also shares a deeply challenging insight. He notes that the pastors in India are not asking for the persecution to stop.
See, that stops me in my tracks.
It's intense.
Because if I'm honest, if I were facing a 5-year prison sentence for hosting a prayer meeting, my very first and probably only prayer would be, Lord, get me out of here. Please make this stop immediately.
Right, naturally.
Why wouldn't they pray for that?
Because they have a fundamentally different theology of suffering. They are asking for two very specific things instead. They're asking for the strength for their ministry to continue, and they are praying for the conversion of their persecutors. Yeah. They view persecution not as a failure of God's protection, but as a badge of honor to suffer for his name. It perfectly embodies the key verse for this segment, which is Matthew 5, verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
They aren't trying to escape the cost of the kingdom. They are leaning into it.
Exactly.
Man, that completely reorients how we need to intercede for frontline workers like Ashok, Naila, Pravin, Manu, and Basavaraj, who are all lifted up by name in this week's guide.
Yes, we need to pray differently for them.
So we've looked at believers targeted by specific bureaucratic invisibility in China and believers targeted by very deliberate hypervisible legislation in India. But there's a third dimension here.
Right.
What happens when believers aren't necessarily the target of the law, but are caught in the devastating, indiscriminate crossfire of geopolitical conflict?
And this brings us to the third focus of the week, which is the occupied Palestinian territory. And before we unpack the details of what is happening in Gaza and the West Bank, we really need to explicitly establish the ground rules for how the weekly preview approaches this.
Yes, absolute strict impartiality.
Exactly.
Following the guide, we are looking at this crisis without taking any political sides. We are not interested in assigning geopolitical blame here.
No, not at all.
Our mandate is purely compassionate, gospel-centered intercession for every single soul involved. We are praying for Muslim civilians who are caught in a devastating crisis. We're praying for the Christian witnesses on the ground. We are praying for government leaders to have profound wisdom. And we are praying for an end to terrorist violence. We are interceding for humanity.
And that posture is absolutely essential because the humanitarian reality detailed in the preview is just incredibly grim. Following the terrorist attacks by Hamas on October 7, 2023, and the subsequent war, the devastation has been almost total. Despite a ceasefire taking hold in October 2025, the physical infrastructure of Gaza remains largely decimated. Civilians are dealing with contaminated water, shattered medical networks, and aid that is simply too expensive for the average family to access.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. Furthermore, the ideology of Hamas continues to hold the population in severe political and spiritual bondage.
And that tension is mirrored in the West Bank as well. There are about 45,000 Christians living there, among roughly 3.2 million Palestinians, and they are navigating an incredibly volatile environment. The weekly preview reported a 27% increase in settler violence in 2025 alone.
Yeah, the pressure is immense everywhere.
But amidst all of this, amidst the rubble in Gaza and the tension in the West Bank, the weekly preview highlights a stunning remnant. There are approximately 500 Christians remaining in Gaza.
That number alone is breathtaking, just 500.
500 people.
The vast majority of them are sheltering at the Holy Family Church compound under the pastoral care of Father Youssef Assad. But what is so compelling is that they aren't merely huddling in the dark trying to survive.
No, they're active.
Right. They are actively caring for 50 people living with severe disabilities right now. They are functioning as the hands and feet of Christ in the absolute epicenter of a war zone.
We see that exact same mechanism of resilience with Dar al-Khalima. It's a historic Christian university that literally lost its Gaza campus to an airstrike in 2024. The building's just gone.
Completely destroyed.
But the staff didn't quit. They shifted their focus, and they are currently reaching more than 25,000 displaced children through art therapy.
Wow.
But I have to ask the hard question here. I mean, why stay? If I had the chance, I would take my family and run as far away from the crossfire as possible. Why choose presence over safety?
Well, if you look at the historical and spiritual context, their decision to remain is profoundly strategic.
How so?
The Holy Land holds a 2,000-year continuous testimony of Christ's presence. If those last 500 Christians flee, if the church completely disappears from Gaza, that historic light goes permanently dark in that region.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah, they are consciously choosing to maintain a witness in the rubble.
They are holding the line.
Exactly.
And the key verse for them is Matthew 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
No.
Our challenge as listeners is to pray for that peace and to ask God to execute the kind of reconciliation that no political treaty or government intervention can possibly accomplish on its own.
Yes. So we've covered 3 massive, heavy realities today. The unreached hour in China, the criminalized church in India, and the faithful remnant in the rubble of Gaza.
Yeah.
The question now becomes, how do you, the listener, actually process this?
Right.
How do you take these overwhelming global burdens and practically apply them to your life this week without just shutting down from the weight of it all?
And that is where the structure of the weekly preview really shines. It breaks the massive global burden down into a manageable daily journey.
It really does.
It provides 7 daily devotionals that actively tie the Great Commission back to your everyday life. They draw a through line from the Old Testament all the way to the New Testament.
Right, it's very structured.
For instance, you start your week on Monday in Genesis 12, verse 3, looking at the blessing that crosses every border. And you build sequentially through the week until you anchor on Sunday in John 3, verse 16, focusing on the world he loved.
And the specific prayer challenge they issue for the week is incredibly accessible. It asks, can you carve out just 9 minutes each day to pray? That is exactly 3 minutes dedicated to each of the 3 themes.
That's totally doable.
Yeah. Or if you feel like you need a guided experience to keep you focused, you can just join the 5-minute pre-recorded prayer of the day that covers all 3 focuses seamlessly.
And for those of you who are listening right now and feeling a fire in your bones to do more, there are bonus action challenges. You can head over to joshuaproject.net, search for the AU people, and click the Adopt the AU button to commit to ongoing long-term prayer for them.
That's a great practical step.
It really is.
Yeah.
You can also take a few minutes to write an email to a ministry that is serving believers in India or Gaza, just to tell them that someone halfway across the world knows they are there and is praying for them.
Yeah, that tangible connection changes things. It turns abstract statistics back into real beating hearts.
It really does. So, as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over this week. We have spent this deep dive looking at believers enduring unbelievable pressure. We've looked at Indian pastors facing 5-year prison sentences just for praying. And we've looked at 500 Christians in Gaza choosing to shelter the disabled in a war zone instead of fleeing for their own safety.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, if the Christian faith can survive and even thrive under the crushing pressure of anti-conversion laws, and if it can hold its ground in the literal rubble of a geopolitical war zone, what does that say about our faith in places where it is entirely free?
That's a heavy question.
Are we using our freedom to be as bold and as sacrificial as they are in their captivity?
That is the exact kind of uncomfortable, refining question that connects our lives directly to the front lines. You know, the unreached, the persecuted, and those in conflict zones aren't just 3 separate categories of global problems. There are 3 interconnected dimensions of the exact same unfinished Great Commission.
Exactly.
And when you pray for one, you strengthen the entire global body of Christ.
You are an active participant in blessing the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience.
Yes.
To step fully into this journey this week, we strongly encourage you to download the web-based app by clicking the link in the description. or you can go directly to assistingtoobey.com.
Definitely do that. Having the app on your phone is the absolute best way to ensure you have the devotionals and the specific prayer prompts right in front of you every single morning.
Exactly. And you also want to make sure you tune in and watch the Monday Meet video every week. That drops at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time El Salvador on the Assisting to Obey YouTube channel.
Such a great resource.
It is a fantastic space designed specifically to encourage one another and start the week strong together. Your host for that is Gloria Sloan-Castellanos, the creator of the Missions Connect app.
It's just such a great way to align your mindset with a global community intercessors before the busyness of Monday takes over.
So true. Finally, we invite you to follow the Assisting to Obey social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube so you never miss an update or a new prayer focus.
Yeah, stay connected.
So, as you step into week 22, remember the isolated AO, remember the courageous pastors in India, and remember the faithful remnant in Gaza. When you look at the map of the world this week, you don't have to see a broken machine. You can see a canvas for God's urgent, actionable mercy.
So, you want a faith that actually matters, right? You want to make a difference in the world, to see the gospel changing lives, to know that your walk with God and His Word is impacting more than just your own life. Yeah, you want your life to count for the nations. But here's the thing. You're busy, maybe overwhelmed. You're pulled in 20 different directions. And even though you want to engage in missions and the Great Commission, you don't always know what to pray for, what's happening globally, or what your next step should be. The desire to obey is there, but the pathway isn't always clear. Let the Missions Connect app show you the way. Every day, you'll get a missions-focused devotional with a simple, practical action step and an option to share with the Missions Connect community. Every week, you get 3 strategic prayer focuses with fresh daily text and audio prayers, so you're never guessing about what to pray for. And when you're ready, you'll find opportunities to actually get involved in God's global work. Everything in the devotional and prayer section is free forever, but we offer you the opportunity to try the premium version for 15 days. You want to impact the nations with the gospel? With Missions Connect, now you can. Missions Connect, helping you bless the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience. A ministry of assistingtoobey.com.